I've seen many brands blow past the 8-figure mark over the years. I've also seen many brands fail. Brands that did succeed or do succeed generally have a few things in common. So let's dissect what makes these brands tick, and I'll show you some things that you can do to replicate their success in your business. So the first thing that 8-figure brands do that a lot of other brands don't is they massively hyper-focus on their brand positioning. So like top brands are not all things to all people. They are one thing to one set of people. I mean, there's obviously exceptions to this rule, but they generally pinpoint a unique space in the market and they absolutely own it. So this isn't about like finding a niche. It's about creating a category and becoming the leader. Where can you play to win? There's actually a great book called Play to Win, and it takes some of Procter & Gamble's philosophies, but it's about like, if you look at the entire market that you're attacking, where can you be a very specific leader? I'll give you an example. So if you sell an electrolyte mix, and I mean, there's already a billion different electrolyte mixes out there. So how do you stand out? So you could create an electrolyte mix specifically for golfers. And if you're selling an electrolyte mix for golfers, you're going to want to put your product in places where golfers actually purchase products. So the first thing that comes to mind is you're not going to want to be in Walmart or in some discount retailer across every chain in North America, because your product's not going to sell through and it's going to be competing with all the other generic products that are made for everyday use. If you're selling electrolytes to golfers, you're going to want to exist in every single golf pro shop at every single golf course and golf club in the country. People are done golfing. Some of them probably had something to drink. They're going to want some electrolytes to get themselves back to feeling pre-golf exercise mode, right? So that would be one place where golfers buy products made for golfers because they assume they're superior. So segmenting your market and finding a particular demographic and avatar that you can absolutely kill it with is something that 8-figure brands generally do extremely well. Again, the big lesson is here, don't be everything to everybody. Figure out who you're serving, what else is in that market, and become the leader at the segment that you want to win at. Highly recommend reading Where to Play, or Play to Win, sorry. The next thing that 8-figure businesses do very well is they have data-driven decision-making. So if you're running a 7-figure business or a 6-figure business, ideally you have your daily KPI documents. That's just like the beginning of starting any kind of business. And you should be using those from a team perspective. If there's multiple days where one of your KPIs is off, that gives you a bit of a dashboard so that you can make a decision to solve that problem. So, I mean, really low-level stuff that you should be evaluating is, are the things that we're doing continuing to work? And if they're not, how do we solve those? But data is the compass that guides just about every single major brand in the world. Like for sure, 8 figures, 1000% 9 figures. But these brands don't just collect data. They interpret it so that they can understand the customer journey intimately. So a common way to do this that used to be pretty typical in direct response was like RFM, recency, frequency, monetary. So those were some of the ways that they segmented up their audience so that they could tell, they would know how quickly people would purchase. Furthermore, there's so much data that we have access to, and so much of it easily plugs into business tools. So whether you're using Domo or one of the other billion BI tools out there, there's even tools that have like tons of pre-built dashboards. So you don't even have to do a ton of thinking. You can just connect it to your store, everything imports, and you can get some valuable insights. But if you have somebody on your team that is specifically focused on business intelligence, there's a lot of things that you can start to figure out. I'll give you an example that's probably fairly relevant because most of the D2C brands do a ton of media buying. Incrementality isn't something that's overly talked about in the D2C world. People are just generally looking at what their CPAs are and their ROAS and blah, 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 blah. Typically, if you have 2 channels, let's just say Google search and YouTube, your Google search CPAs, like let's take brand out of there, just general search, could be 30% cheaper or 40% cheaper than your YouTube ads. And taking the fact that YouTube is difficult to track out of the equation, if you had a data scientist or somebody really digging into everything that you're doing, you'd be able to do some incrementality testing. And this is a hypothetical, but perhaps Google search is driving a considerably lower CPA, but it's only bringing 10% new incremental customers into your business. Like, I'm talking about customers that didn't have another touch point. So you're introducing them to the brand with search. Whereas YouTube, search might be 40% cheaper per customer than YouTube, but YouTube might be providing 80% incremental new eyeballs on your business. So what that means is that, sure, the CPA might cost 30-40% more, but it's introducing new people to the funnel that will now be less expensive when you retarget them or target them on other audience or on other platforms. So it's adding new audiences who have never experienced your product through Facebook or through other channels. So, and I'm not saying that these numbers that I've just spit out are accurate or whatever, but if you have a data team, a data science in your business, and you can properly run experiments, you can tell whether there's more value in running a higher CPA medium when it justifies bringing down the overall cost of the other acquisition. So anyways, that is another thing that brands do. Obviously, having a data scientist on your team is not cheap, but it is something very valuable. And the third thing that really great brands tend to do, especially that start in D2C, is they build community very, very well. And I'm not just talking about like a Facebook group. You know, if you're planning on bringing your brand beyond D2C, having it on Amazon, having it potentially in retail as well, or other channels, your advertising is eventually going to move beyond Meta, beyond Google. You know, there's going to be other mechanisms for acquiring customers, and every mechanism isn't intended just to make a sale. So a good example would be for us here at Sure Earth in Vancouver, we would have big Earth Day events at our retail locations. So we had 2 retail locations previously, we have 1 now. And we would have like a band come and we'd have all these events. We'd have food, it was all free. And then we'd have some fundraising activities. Like I got dunked in a dunk tank, but these are like very grassroots, local community building. And it's insane how quickly that can drive local word of mouth. It can drive just the ability for people to feel more connected with your brand. And the more connected people feel with your brand, like the deeper the community and the deeper the emotional connection, the easier it is for you to introduce new products and have buy-in. You know, this is one element of brand, but getting community, whether it's local or online, is enormous. So some things that you can do, obviously grassroots stuff locally, but you can have a Facebook group or some sort of group where people can meet together and you're kind of the host. And if you don't have the resources to do that, you can even just go and participate where these conversations are already happening. I'm not saying the founder, but you have people out there in the community where you're trying to be leaders, kind of going back to the first thing I said, tied to you choose where to play and then you become a leader. And part of the way you become a leader is by joining the conversation, providing value. And I'm not talking about selling to people, but just like literally being in the conversation on social media. And like one brand that did this really well, and everybody knows of Triple Whale, but for a few years there, they had like 5 or 6 different people on their staff. There was Raba, there was Alex, there was tons of people, and they were just out there being part of the community. They weren't saying, hey, hop on Triple Whale. They were just out there and they were providing value that is relevant to the community. Those are 3 things. I know it's a little elaborate. I'm not talking about specific media buying tactics, but those are 3 things that big brands just do differently. You can do them too. I suggest that you do them, but obviously don't spend $1 million getting a data lake and BI infrastructure set up if you don't have the resources to actually use the data. If you like this, if you have any other questions, drop them below. Happy to answer. See you guys in the next one.